Now, what some people need to understand is California wasn't always like this.
What kind of place is this?
Especially when it came to the Second Amendment. Believe it or not, California at one point was an open carry state, which allowed individuals who were lawfully allowed to own firearms to legally carry them out in public, similar to what we see in states like Texas, Arizona, Alaska, and others. California had that right. And I say had because up until 2012, open carry was an option people had to freely exercise their Second Amendment rights. Although the movement to ban open carry started long before 2012, this dates back all the way to 1967 with the Mulford Act, which was a bill designed to ban open carry of loaded firearms. Now, this bill was mainly in response to the Black Panther Party at the time, which was a revolution socialist organization known for openly carrying firearms to patrol their neighborhoods and protect against police brutality. Now, 2 months before this bill was set to be passed, the Black Panther Party marched to the state capitol openly carrying M1 carbines, 12-gauge shotguns, and sidearms like revolvers to protest against this bill, unlike some organizations and parties that supported this bill. Sadly, the Black Panther Party were unsuccessful in stopping the bill from being passed, being escorted shortly after the arrival by law enforcement. The bill was eventually passed on July 27 of 1967, effectively ending the open carry of loaded firearms in California because technically it was still legal to open carry firearms in California. They just now had to be unloaded, which I personally find the idea of carrying an unloaded firearm completely ridiculous unless you were able to carry a loaded magazine in a pocket of some sort. But even then, I'm thinking about the time it would take to get your gun in the fight. So just to give you an example, I decided to do a little experiment. I was a bit curious myself. I wanted to see how long it would take me to draw my weapon from an open carry holster, load a magazine, rack it, and get my first shot off. Now, understand, I train pretty often, but even then, this isn't fast enough, or at least I don't believe it's fast enough to get your gun in a fight in a situation where your life is put in imminent danger of bodily harm and you need to act immediately to defend yourself. Now, eventually in 2012, the California legislature approved California Penal Code Section 26359. Correction, it's Penal Code 26350. Which effectively made it illegal to carry both a loaded and unloaded firearm in public, which pretty much brings us up to present-day California, where the law is currently being challenged in the case of Baird v. Bonta that currently sits in the Ninth Circuit. This case challenges the ban on open carry in California and argues that the restriction infringes upon the Second Amendment and the people's right to carry. Now, during this case, judges have argued that the law does not violate the Second Amendment or people's right to carry because open carry is still allowed in California under very specific conditions. Like, for example, if you live in a county with a population under 200,000, or if you're a business owner. There's also situations like if you're hunting, fishing, or in a shooting range environment where open carry is generally permitted. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer, this is not legal advice, and these laws can vary widely depending on your county. Now, here's the thing. The Second Amendment is meant to be practical for any citizen who can freely walk the streets to exercise. The problem is when you have restrictions which exclude majority from exercising those rights, because most of us don't live in these counties where the population is under 200,000. But even when you do live in one of these counties, you can't just open carry without first having to get permission and being issued a permit. And even when you are issued the permit, you still are restricted to open carrying within that county only. And now, while it's great that we can legally open carry while fishing, hunting, or at the shooting range, that's not what people are asking for. They want the ability to freely exercise Second Amendment rights in public environments, places where the likelihood of needing a firearm for personal protection are far more practical. And then there's the argument about fear and the concern for public safety, which, let me address the fear part real quick. The idea is that seeing Janet openly carrying a handgun on her hip is going to cause fear and anxiety and maybe cause some people to have a mental breakdown in the middle of the store because they can't believe someone would dare exercise Second Amendment rights in front of them. Now, as polite as I can say this, I don't give a shit. My rights do not end when your feelings are hurt. In the great words of Candace Owen, life is hard. Get a helmet. Okay, now let's address a more serious concern, public safety. Some argue that the presence of firearms openly displayed in public might escalate into more gun violence, but this couldn't be further from the truth, especially when it comes to responsible gun owners being the ones open carrying, since the presence of firearms often serves as a deterrent to crime, making criminals think twice when seeing armed citizens. This most of the time discourages aggressive or criminal behavior before it even happens. But now, if the concern is more about people who are open carrying, we can take a closer look at states that have already allowed open carry in public and see how they're doing. Spoiler, if there was a dramatic increase in gun violence due to people openly carrying, we would have already heard about it by now, but we haven't, and that's because most people who open carry tend to be law-abiding citizens who follow the law and aren't looking or cause any trouble. Now, I want to close the video off by saying if tomorrow open carry became legal once again in California, I probably wouldn't do it. Now, I have my personal reasons why, but see, for me, this isn't about wanting the right to open carry to exercise it, but instead to recognize that we should have already had this right from the beginning. We shouldn't have to be in a position where we're constantly fighting to get rights that we should have already had all along. Because the reality is this, the more a right is constantly being restricted, the closer we are to losing it entirely. We're seeing that right now with the First Amendment. Oh yeah, you have the right to say whatever you want, as long as it doesn't offend or criticize a certain country or an ethnic group. Because if it does, that's hate speech and is not covered in the First Amendment, so straight to jail. But you get the point. The goal should always be to preserve and expand our freedoms, not to restrict them further. We should all be able to exercise our rights as citizens just as the Founding Fathers intended, without fear of losing them or having them stripped away. Now, I know some will say that the whole point of the Second Amendment is to prevent that from happening, which I agree. And I want to dig deeper into that topic of when is the time when talking is not working and blood needs to be shed. But that's for a whole nother video. So that's all I gotta say. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you want to see me as I open carry, yes, just because I wouldn't do it in public if it became legal doesn't mean I don't train at home. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to check out my Instagram at ShadowTheWicked. Also, if you want to get in contact with me, that's a great place. But other than that, hope you guys had a good Christmas and I hope you guys have a good New Year. Stay safe and God bless.